Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about the water management systems of ancient Sri Lanka. About 2000 years ago, though there was abundant water in the wet zone and there were many rivers in the country, the ancient man wanted to do agriculture in the dry zone due to the availability of fertile soil, and that is understandable as the main livelihood during that time was agriculture. Because they had decided to live and cultivate in the dry zone, they needed to obtain enough water for their needs. So they started to construct ponds, canals, and large tanks to store water for the agriculture, domestic, and various other needs. This helped them a lot to build up a civilization and a community. The term water management is used to describe the strategy used to gather water, to store it, and to use it efficiently, like which our ancestors did brilliantly. There are two reasons why I think the water available then was sufficient and enough for the people who lived then. The first reason is there were abundant number of large tanks in the country to store water. This can be proved with the archaeological evidences such as Minneri River, Basavakulama, and various other tanks. The second reason, and the most important reason, I think, the people of that era used water efficiently and carefully. This can be proved by King Parakramabahu's famous statement: "Do not release even a drop of rainwater to the sea without using it." Because the people of that era had enough resources to store their water in large tanks and they were mindful enough to use water properly, they were able to produce enough food and satisfy their daily needs. Even at present, with the advanced technology, constructing something very big and complex takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So, we should think, how hard would it have been to construct a large tank 2000 years ago? So, we should appreciate the services of our ancestors in building these huge tanks which are still used today. We must understand that during those times they didn't just construct one or two tanks, they constructed hundreds of tanks throughout the country. Let's look at some huge tanks that were constructed during the Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa era. These tanks help them to collect water during the rainy season and to use them in the dry season. They also help them to prevent floods during the monsoons. Now, we are going to discuss about a large tank. Usually, large tanks have several parts, and the first part we are going to analyze is the tank bund. When we are storing large volumes of water inside a tank, the walls of a tank, in this case the tank bund, should be thick and strong to hold the water, and they also should be resistant to erosion from the water inside the tank. Usually, the tank bund is constructed using different soil layers and stones. If they are not constructed properly, water may overflow, breaking through the tank bund and damage the villages and cause fatalities. A clever technology that was used by our ancestors when they were constructing the tank bund is that they built the tank bund between two hills. This provided the tank more strength and rigidity. This can be clearly seen in the Yoda Weaver built by King Dhatusena. The tank bund of Yoda Weaver stretches about 7 miles in length. The next tank part we are going to discuss about is the Ralapanava. When waves occur on the surface of tanks due to strong winds, they result in erosion of the inner parts of the tank bund. So our ancestors decided to put stones inside the tank bund to avoid erosion. By having a Ralapanava inside the tank bund, the tank lasts for long periods and will cause minimum problems for renovations. The third tank part which we are going to discuss is the sluice or the sorover. The main function of the sluice is to release the water under extreme pressure. Different tanks had different number of sluices in them, but the most common technique was a tank had two sluices, namely the upper sluice and the inner sluice. The sluices were usually made out of stones. In the Vesagiri inscription, the function, size, and the material used to build the sluice is mentioned. Satar Riyanak Diat Hindavu Dia Ketapahan, which means a stone slab which was connected to a sluice to control water was 4 rians. Fourth tank part which we are going to talk about is the Bisakotua or the sluice gate. The Bisakotua is a part of the sluice. The Bisakotua is a vital part of the sluice. Its main function is to help the sluice to release water into the canals and valleys with minimum pressure. The Bisakotua is considered as an unique Sri Lankan invention by the irrigational technologists around the world. The Bisakotua is constructed as a square shape from inside the tank, very close to the dam. Inside the Bisakotua, there is a door which moves up and down, and it helps to release the required amount of water outside the tank. Apart from large tanks, ancient Sri Lankans also constructed ponds, canals, water fountains, and etc. to store water. Canals were mainly constructed to avoid floods and to transport water from one tank to another tank. According to an inscription, an officer named Adhika started to construct canals for the first time in the 2nd century BC. When King Ilanga constructed the Tissamaharama tank, he also constructed a canal connecting the tank and Kirindi Oya to obtain water from the river. The canals that were attached to Mahaveli River brought water to tanks like Giritale, Kaudulla, Kantale, and Minneria. Now, let us talk about some examples for ponds and water fountains built by our ancestors. When it comes to ponds, the most brilliant and noticeable of them are the Lotus Pond, Twin Pond, and the Pokuna in Abhayagiri. And when it comes to water fountains, there is nothing more impressive and exuberant than the Sigiriya water fountains. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you learned a lot about the water management systems of ancient Sri Lanka.